Letter I, warrant articles 5 and 7.
I make a motion to remove warrant article number 5 from the ballot.
Second for discussion. What is warrant article 5? Could you read it?
Warrant article, yeah, I do have it there. Just a second.
Karen has it right there.
It's the one that allows us to retain 2.5% of our net assessment as a fund balance.
Did I get a second?
I second.
Oh, okay. We have not discussed or deliberated on this. We did not get an opinion from the administration, and I don't feel that my motion to accept this in a draft form moved it to the ballot. So I think at best we should reconsider what we're going to do. I did do some research and found that Gordon Graham, our attorney, wrote quite a comprehensive report about this just as in September of this year. And really is something that I think all of us should consider if we're going to do this, because I think he does a very objective job here of talking about some of the ins and outs. And I hate to see this just go through and be on the ballot when we have had zero discussion, and because we've had zero discussion about it. I'm not speaking to the merit of the warrant itself, just that it doesn't belong on the ballot if we have not discussed it and voted on it.
Could you read the warrant article?
Shall the school district vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded the retention of year-end unassigned general funds in an amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 2.5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment in accordance with RSA 198:4-B, Roman numeral 2. Such fund balance retained can only be used to reduce the tax rate or for emergency expenditures and over expenditures under RSA 32:11, which are approved by the Department of Education.
Yes, Mike.
I don't know. I don't see. I mean, philosophically, I'm against using the fund balance in any way, and it seems like that could go towards the tax rate or in emergencies. But I think in these times, if it's used to go to the tax rate or for emergencies, I think in these times, I think the voters could decide that. You know, if the voters say that's what they want, I think then, I don't know, I think it probably should be on there. I don't know if that's not really the motion. If the motion is we haven't really put it on there yet, the motion was to withdraw it, so I'm assuming it's already on there. So if it's already on there, I would say that we should keep it on there. Myself would let the voters decide.
Can you speak to it?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, you know, part of I think that what we're supposed to do here as a representative government is to vet these issues out. And we should be the ones that take the time to read Gordon's report, particularly since he's our own attorney. I found it, you know, very enlightening because I know him and we've discussed things with him before. I think that we should come up with an opinion, whatever that opinion is, to move it to the warrant or not. Because I think if we just say, let the voters decide, and we don't have a full understanding of it, we advocate our responsibilities as representatives. So therefore, I don't think that I know we have not discussed it as a board until I did this last research since the last meeting. I really knew nothing about it. So I think it's a mistake for us to move something to the ballot that we don't have an understanding of. And some of the things that are pointed out in Gordon's report are some of the idiosyncrasies of it. It's a basic idea, But like anything, it's controlled by the law and the RSAs, and you really have to try to form an understanding of that to decide. So on that basis, I think we should remove it, not based on the fact of whether we should use fund balance, fund balance money for emergencies. I've said all along, I'm okay with using fund balance money for emergencies or unforeseen issues. So I really don't have an objection on it that way. I just don't believe that it should be just pushed to the ballot.
Yes, Mike?
When, say it was left on there, and at our next meeting, would that be too late to pull it off? Yes. And,
The warrant articles have to be posted by Monday, so we have to have decisions
Monday.
tonight about what's gonna be on there and what's not.
and I haven't seen that, I'm sorry, if I could continue. I haven't seen that report from Gordon, or I haven't read it to my knowledge. What is, let's say there was no warrant article, what happens with the fund balance right now at the end of the fiscal year?
It goes back to the taxpayers to reduce the tax rate.
So the only difference really in the warrant is the additional use of possibility of, in emergencies of up to 2-point-something%, right?
What this warrant article does is it gives the board a decision-making power to keep some of that fund balance money, just in case an emergency were to come up next year and we didn't have a fund balance next year, we'd have a resource to expend those funds. Right now, by law, all of the fund balance has to be returned to the taxpayers.
Okay, and how did that get on the warrant or listed there with the other ones? So we didn't approve that, right?
It's a new rule that was just passed through the legislature, so it was included in your packet, I believe, at the December 4th meeting as one of the warrant articles that we presented to the board.
One of the 6 or 7 that were there, right?
Yes.
This one
May I speak to it? And to your question, Mike, that is the part of the minutes that I clarified, that I motioned to accept that as a draft document. Totally thinking we would have a discussion about that and decide to move on it or not. So it was never my intention to move it to the ballot. I'm only assuming it's on the ballot now and framing my motion in a tense to remove it, to avoid that discussion about whether it's on the ballot or not, and just say it's on the ballot, and what's the will of the board, to remove it or not remove it at this point. So I don't really want to have, go back and have that whole discussion about whether it got there the right way or the wrong way. But I think what we should discuss is, are we informed enough to put it on there? And I always look at it this way: if a voter comes up to me after the meeting and asks me how I feel about that, I better have something to tell them, whether I agree with them or disagree with them. But I better have some information about why I voted to put that on the ballot. And I feel that I have some more information about it now, but when this moved to the ballot, we didn't even discuss it. And I think it comes to one of the things that we need to correct on this board is making 11th hour decisions as we're doing right now.
Is there any more discussion? Yes,
One
Mike?
more thing, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think and since it has to be decided on tonight, if it's going to be removed, I'm in a bind, and I think I have to go with leaving it up to the voters, since we didn't have this discussion and to take it off, and then if we needed it, if something major happens in this emergency, I think if we had that money, I shouldn't be arguing about the warrant itself, but I just, at this late hour, I think to leave it up to the voters, are pretty smart people, and smarter than I am, and I wish we had more time to discuss this, whether it should be on there or not, but that's where I'm at right now.
And,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We can present this to the voters in another year if we wanted to, correct? Because my understanding of it is there is a lot of hoops that we'd have to go through in order to spend the money anyways. And it is, and also, we're the ones that would decide. All it is giving us the ability to put money aside if we would like to be able to spend. Yeah, and I guess with that said, I would be comfortable with removing it for the voters for this year and considering it again maybe for next year. It's not something, we couldn't just use it if needed. I mean, there would have to be a pretty large catastrophe. And when we say emergency, we're talking a pretty serious emergency.
Right, if it was an emergency, we would have to write a letter to the Department of Ed. We would have to get permission, because this does not allow us to overexpend our budget. We still are bound by our budget. Whatever our budget is, we cannot overexpend that. What this would allow is if we had an emergency and we did have to overexpend our budget, this gives us a revenue source that when we write our letter to the Department of Ed, we say we need $200,000 to cover this emergency, and this is where we're going to get those funds from. So that's what this warrant article gives us, that vehicle.
And I do see where we could be backing ourselves into that situation where so far budgets have been cut because of what I believe that the Budget Committee sees as having, I guess, a padded budget, if I can use that term. And therefore, I can see the need for it possibly in the future if we do come down to where we're getting our budget cut over and over again, that in the future, this may be a necessity in case of real emergency. But for this to go on for this year, I personally don't see, if we remove it from this warrant article this year, I would be comfortable with that.
Go ahead, David.
I just wanted to clear up one thing too, Mike, about, the fund balance at the end of the year. It is true that it goes back to offset the taxes, if this board doesn't vote to spend it. So if there was an emergency pending near the end of the year, we would have full access with a majority vote of this board to expend that fund balance. The money that would be put in here, as Karen said, you'd have to go through a process to access that money. So I just wanted to clear that up, that we do have the ability to directly spend what's called fund balance money at the end of the year. So that's
Go
all.
ahead, Mike.
And lastly, okay, and so if this were to be removed, last year we bought some paper ahead of time. That was just a budget adjustment, sort of, right? That's not per se using the fund balance, but, all right, thank you, I'm all set.
Is there any more discussion? Leanne, could you reread the motion to us, or do you need David to read it?
The motion was to remove Article 5 from the school district act.
Correct.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.